busy is another one of those words that makes me tick because, I mean, honestly, guys, the only people I know who are busy are they live in Richard Scarry's busy town and they're animals and they drive vehicles made out of the food they eat. So that is I'm not driving a banana car right now, so I'm not actually that busy. And I think it's because so many folks in our industry and in all industries, right? Especially they we work hard. All of us work hard as professionals, and especially the attractions industry, we work very hard. And sometimes we get so bogged down in like the idea of busy that we can't see the forest through the trees.
What's the one premier event that brings the global attractions industry together? IAAPA Expo 2026, happening in Orlando, Florida, November 16th through the 20th.
It's where more than 40,000 professionals come to share the wonder, explore over 1,000 innovative exhibitors, and discover future-focused solutions.
From education to networking to ideas that drive real business impact, IAAPA Expo is where what's next takes shape.
Register now and save up to 30% at iaaapa.org/IAAPA Expo. That's IAAPA.org/IAAPA EXPO. Welcome to the Attraction Pros Podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros Podcast. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going fantastically, Josh. And you?
Oh, thank you for asking. I'm doing very well.
Excellent.
Question for you.
Yep.
Would you consider yourself creative?
Ooh, such a good question. Yes, I would.
Good.
But only because, I think I know where you're going with this, because I have worked with a lot of people who don't think they're creative, and I've kind of helped them see that they actually are, and that has sparked more of an idea of what creativity truly is to me. So, as you know, I am a musician, so that's one way that one person could consider themselves traditionally creative. But I also look at the work that I do with clients and some of the things that are maybe outside of the norm of what people might expect. And, you know, there's kind of a creative bent to that kind of work as well. So absolutely, I consider myself creative. How about you?
Somewhat. You know, I consider myself relatively creative. I think I can come up with some good ideas every once in a while. Certainly not as creative as other people. There are some organizations that have entire departments that are called creative, and I don't feel like I fit into that box. So I'm sure that I have second guessed myself many times on how creative I am. But after this interview with Ryan Allen, I think that we can all agree that we are in fact creative.
And I think the important thing to recognize is that we're creative in different ways. Like, I can't think of any examples right now, but in the 400 and something episodes that we have done of this podcast, and the different times that we've gotten together to talk about the direction of the podcast, or, you know, ways that we can enhance our offerings to our audience, you've definitely come up with ideas that I never would have come up with. So from that standpoint, I would say, what's that?
And vice versa.
And thank you. Yep. But from that standpoint, I would say you created something. You brought something to the table that wouldn't have been there before. This is something I think about in my neighborhood quite a bit, because I'm one of the few people that can name the 3 notes in a C major chord. However, there's a lot of people in my neighborhood that can build a staircase, right? They can put in windows in a house. I can't do that. Or they have a great view of what paint might look good in different places. That is not my strong suit. So I think we all can come to terms with the fact that we are creative in very different ways.
Yes. I'm also very excited to tell you CEG.
Yes. Yes.
So today's guest, like we mentioned, is Ryan Allen. He is the lead wingman and chief experience officer for Little Birdie Consulting. He is based in Southern California, and he's been in the attractions industry for a little over 2 decades. And his consulting business, I hope I sell this correctly, but I would say this intersection of leadership, hospitality, live entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put creativity in there. I think
Creativity. I mean, this interview was just all of that. Just it morphed into one.
and I think the word that could, if you have a visual umbrella over all of that, is community, right?
Ooh.
Because I think so many of the things that Ryan does within his business and just him as a human being brings people together. And so when you think about creativity, building community, that's exactly what he does through all the things that you just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. He also talks about the intentionality of hospitality, which when it comes to serving others, he looks at it, yes, from the guest experience, but I think he spent more time talking about hospitality from a leadership standpoint, saying my employees are my guests. And he talked about the first day experience and what that is like. And his view of hospitality is very much, I would say, 100% morphed into leadership as well.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that we took a little detour and talked about was quicksand. And you might be wondering, why are we talking about quicksand? It was actually something that came up when I was on his podcast a little while ago. And really, the things that leaders have to watch out for example, not thinking you're creative can be quicksand. It's anything that can hold you back, which when you really look in the mirror, a lot of the times it's yourself. So, how to get out of the quicksand, what that looks like, what that can be, and how important it is that we can figure out how to get out of it.
Absolutely. So, should we play that C major chord and go build a staircase and then get to this interview with Ryan Allen?
If I could sing those notes, I would, but CEG, here we go. Hey, Ryan, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. How you doing today?
I'm great, Matt. Josh, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
Absolutely. We're so excited to get into this conversation. Let's start off with tell us a little bit about your career and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Allen. I am the lead wingman for Little Birdie Consulting, which is a consulting firm based in helping folks lead with heart, serve with flair, and create with joy. It is named after my dog, Birdie. She is a Jack Russell mix. She's got lots of energy. She's very curious. She's very quick to tell folks if she doesn't like something, but she also, more than anything, is a bundle of affection and loves to cuddle up with folks, especially like the first time she meets someone, she's a little standoffish, but then within about 10 minutes, she's sitting on their lap. So she's kind of the perfect catalyst and caricature for the work that I like to do, taking care of folks and proving that the best version of leadership is rooted in hospitality.
Nice. Amazing. Leading up to Little Birdie, we want to hear all about it, but curious as far as your background and your career path.
Yeah, so I've been in the entertainment hospitality industry for over 2 decades. My first job ever was at King's Dominion outside of Richmond. I was a costumer helping bring the Nickelodeon Celebration Parade to life, which is kind of a fun full circle moment. The director of that show got in that parade experience, joined me at Carowinds many years later as a Santa performer, which was like a really cool, like only in theme park experience. But after King's Dominion, I ended up working for Radio Disney in Richmond, helping bring magic to places that didn't have castles. So I got to like talk about the Jonas Brothers and Hannah Montana and High School Musical. And I was our lead talent. So it was me running my mouth and doing the What Time Is It dance from High School Musical 2 for summers on end, then ended up in Orlando at Walt Disney World as an entertainment leader with Epcot Atmosphere and the Magic Kingdom Parade team. Went over to Disney Cruise Line for a few years as a character leader, which was really cool. Decided ships was not it for me because it's a lot. Like ship life is a lot if you're not ready for it. So I went back home to Richmond, worked for a boutique event company for a while, doing like over the top like galas and like weddings for people in their backyard where they had just stupid money to spend. So like I turned a pool into a giant Midsummer Night's Dream experience for a wedding of 20 people, which was stupid in the best way possible. And then I got an opportunity to go back out to sea with Holland America Line for about 2 years. I saw the world, which was amazing. I spent a summer in the Mediterranean. I turned 30 in Bora Bora and swam with sharks, which is one of my favorite like bits that I get to tell people. And then again, Ship Life was kind of wrapping up, and an opportunity presented itself at Carowinds, where the Carolinas come together as an entertainment leader. My dear friend Clayton Lawrence, he and I have known each other since we were 16 years old, both being like frontline team leads in the Paramount Parks world. He was at the corporate entertainment. He was at the corporate entertainment team with Cedar Fair at the time, and he called me and was like, "You're off ships. I think I have something." So I went down to Charlotte and was at Carowinds for about 8 years. I wrapped that time up in the fall of 2025, started my consulting firm, and have been able to impact not just our industry in the attractions world, but also focus on chambers of commerce and communities outside of what we think about hospitality to help bring hospitality to life for them as well.
So Ryan, that is a wonderful journey that you've been on from a career standpoint, and it's not nearly over yet. But I'm curious, going back to that first job at King's Dominion, thinking about entertaining people and all the fun things that you got to do there, and now in your consulting business, what do you bring with you, like from those first experiences that still impact you and your clients today?
Yeah, I think a lot when I'm interacting with my clients, one of the things that I bring with me is what is the first experience that an associate or team member has. I will never, ever forget my first day at King's Dominion was the day that the Paramount Parks was going through a fairly significant leadership change. And by that, I mean the two salaried entertainment leaders had the opportunity to exit the park. And no one knew what was happening. I showed up like ready to go wash some costumes and sew some buttons. And I sat in HR for about 2 hours because no one knew exactly like where I needed to land. And Shannon, bless her heart, she was the stage manager at the Paramount Theater. She came in, she somehow was dressed like Laura Croft without actually meaning to be Laura Croft. So she came into HR and she was like, "Ryan, let's go down to the theater." So we went to the theater and she said, "Just sit here because I don't know what's going on." And she kind of filled me in on what was going on. And it has shifted, that moment has shifted for me how I, as a leader, prepare my teams for when they're welcoming folks. But it's something that we all need to think about, is that we end up getting lost in the noise and the sauce of our own business and forget that, like, for some of our team members, it is the first time that they've had a job. It is the first time that they maybe have driven a car. It's the first time that they are using a badge to get into a location, or that they don't know where the HR building actually is. And so I carry that with me in all of my consulting, because I still think that regardless of theme park or chamber of commerce or hotels or food locations, we need to make sure that everyone's first day experience is what we want them to provide for their guests. And so that's a super important mindset that leaders have to have when they're welcoming folks in. I tell that story all the time because it is, one, comical, and two, very true. But like, it really did shift how I think about a first day experience for anyone who's joining a team. And I love telling that story to my clients so that they can think about, did someone on your team have a bad first day experience, and what did that set them up for their first week, right? What does someone's ideal first week look like? In the theme park world, right? We know this. No day or week is the exact same, but what does an ideal first week look like, right? What does someone's schedule look like from the minute they step on property to the minute they leave after their 40 hours are done? Have you taken them to lunch? Have they walked the park? Have they gotten to see a show? Have they met leaders who support the team but maybe are indirect partners, right? All of those things are super important. And sometimes, because we get so busy, which is like kind of a bad word to me, I think, because we get so enamored in our own world, we don't always think about like how the sausage is made, because we know how it's made.
You mentioned that you talk about that a lot within your consulting, and curious to dive into that a little bit of even just kind of the background of the business. You said you launched it in 2025, so relatively new business. Curious as far as what was maybe the catalyst for starting the business and what that process was like.
Yeah, so like I said, I wrapped up my time at Carowinds in fall of 2025, ready to like kind of stretch my wings a little bit, pun intended, with Little Birdie Consulting, and help take these 20 plus years of crazy and help make people's lives better, right? Help make workplaces better for folks because we spend so much time in our workplaces that we need to think about. We need to think about how we interact in them. So I've gotten the chance to, like I said earlier, work with some chambers of commerce who have been really lovely and some economic development partners who are taking care of communities differently than we have, right, in a theme park world. So I had the chance to work, ironically, Kings Dominion's home county of Hanover County, where you have Hanover tomatoes. If you are a tomato eater, that is where they come from. But Hanover County brought me in to support an entire homegrown hospitality concept for them that included a coffee talk workshop where we mapped out a guest experience. What was the best guest experience you've ever had? And then what are you not doing for your guest to mirror that? And that was a really eye-opening experience for that team because so many of them thought they were doing everything they could. And there were aha moments across the coffee shop of like, oh my God, I've been talking about making signage for this event and I just haven't done it. We've been doing it for 3 years. They don't know where to park. Boom, right? Like those types of moments that for those of us in the theme park world and attractions world, we were like, yeah, of course we would put signage out. But for folks who are maybe running events with their farms, right? There's a lot of farm communities in Hanover County. They were so interested and excited to talk to each other about best practices that they'd experienced. And then we got to a place of talking about how to make it a reality. Because the experience you have at, a Ritz-Carlton or a five-star hotel doesn't fully translate to a farm tour, but there's bits and pieces that do, right? There's signage, there's knowledge, there's how is your team trained, right? That was a huge moment too of the folks at the the early birdie coffee talk was they hadn't trained their teams to provide hospitality. They as the leaders and owners were the only ones holding on to hospitality. And that's not manageable or reasonable. So making sure that they had a hospitality mindset to teach and train was a huge moment for them. Then similarly, I got to eat cheese with them, which was like really good. I have one of my experiences is called Crafted Gathering. So if you think about like folks have workshops and like ropes courses and all those kinds of things all the time. But my therapist told me this idea, so I stole it from her. But she was like, Ryan, you're a crazy person. You should figure out how to like teach people how to do crazy things. And so Crafted Gatherings is that where we gather people in spaces and do unique and interesting things to bring hospitality to life in a tangible way. So I got to produce the boardroom with my friends in Hanover County, where our friends at Kroger brought in like $600 worth of the weirdest cheeses I've ever had in my life. One of them was like somehow caramel and fudge, but also cheese at the same time. I don't know, it was delicious. But everyone got the chance to taste different cheeses and then ask questions to their partners of what they liked about the flavor profiles so that they could build a more robust cheese board for them. So they could build a charcuterie board for them with nuts and grapes and crackers and different salamis and different cheeses. And again, it really is all about the intentionality of hospitality and bringing hospitality to life, right? Again, and it goes back to that first day experience I had at Kings Dominion. No one intentionally left me sitting in HR for 2 hours, but I did get left in HR for 2 hours. So, right, how can I carry that and help folks not have that same experience happen for their teams?
I love that. And Ryan, you're making it really difficult for us to get to the actual questions that we have for you because you've got so many little nuggets so many little rabbit trails that I want to go down. And one of them is from a previous answer where you talked about busy and you kind of had a little throwaway comment. You said, I think busy is a bad word or that it's a bad thing. So I would love to kind of unpeel that onion if we could, just in your mind.
So my degree is in communication and public relations, which means words have meaning. So there's a few words that are like no words for me. One of them is drama. Drama is a class in high school. It is not a thing that professionals have in their workplace. We have internal issues. We have personality conflicts. We might even miscommunicate with each other, but drama is not something that we as professionals should have. Communication is a tough one for me too sometimes because every engagement survey they notice, well, we don't communicate enough. What do you mean we don't communicate enough? Do you mean you didn't receive the communication? Okay, that's different. Do you mean that the communication style didn't connect with you? Okay, that's fair feedback. But like communication is such a broad stroke word that it puts me like, it makes me tick sometimes. Busy is another one of those words that makes me tick because I mean, honestly, guys, the only people I know who are busy are they live in Richard Scarry's busy town and they're animals and they drive vehicles made out of the food they eat. So that is I'm not driving a banana car right now, so I'm not actually that busy. And I think it's because so many folks in our industry and in all industries, right? Especially we work hard. All of us work hard as professionals, and especially the attractions industry, we work very hard. And sometimes we get so bogged down in like the idea of busy that we can't see the forest through the trees. And so when people tell me they're busy, I often have to like, I believe deeply in radical candor. And so I like to stop and say, what do you mean you're busy? Tell me what you're busy with. Tell me what you're working on that I can help remove. What problems can I remove for you? I was working with someone and they said, it feels like right now I've got all of my groceries for one carload up to the car. And if you take this case of bottled water, I don't know that I'll be able to rebalance myself. And I said, okay, well, then what's the second load? What's the second load of groceries? And she goes, I think it's probably watermelons. I said, great, let me go get the watermelons for you right now, right? But that's the important part as leaders and as folks who want to grow in this industry. The the busy word is just such a broad strokes word for we might have some staffing concerns. The operation has changed, right? But we've got to stop using such broad strokes because that allows us as leaders to set a tone of broad strokes as truth. And that's a really, really tough thing to juggle when you're working with a team, right? I think about my team at Carowinds. I believe deeply that we as regional theme park leaders are building places of incubation. And when we are using that mindset, it changes everything, right? Being a place of incubation means I know that this person might be here 3 or 4 seasons and that's it. How exciting that I get to cultivate them, right? Being a place of incubation means that I want to play with all the cool toys, but if we can't do simple at 100%, the cool toys don't matter. One of the things that happens, I think, when folks tell themselves they're busy is that becomes their truth, even if they're not.
So I have like 5 possible follow-up questions to go through just the notes in that. And I'm also thinking about how I just want to get into my bratwurst balloon and fly away another Richard Scarry.
Yeah, Matt, what would your vehicle be, Matt? What would your vehicle be?
Something with funnel cake wheels for sure.
Oh, nice. Good. Yeah.
The funnel cake mobile. Absolutely.
I was on the spot thinking there. Intentionality of hospitality. You talked about Ritz-Carlton and 5-star experiences and translating into a farm tour and that most people wouldn't necessarily be able to see the connection. That's something I talk about a lot as well. I kind of like intentional hospitality and that it is in the intangibles. And yes, Ritz-Carlton, the countertops are great, the flooring is great, the amenities are great, and there's the citrus infused water in the lobby, etc.
Right.
But it's more about kind of the feeling and the mindset and the way that the people are serving people, ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen, if we were to borrow that from Ritz-Carlton. So can you go deeper into your definition of what is intentional hospitality, particularly in comparison to maybe passive hospitality?
Yeah. I think intentional hospitality means that everyone knows what the goal is. Everyone knows that the goal is to take care of these guests. But as leaders, we have to make sure that we're taking care of our teams as guests as well. And I think sometimes that gets lost when we're in a guest service mindset or location. But as a leader, my guests are my team, right? My guests are the folks that I'm taking care of day in and day out. And yes, I've got my guest out in the park or my guest on the tour, but I need to make sure that what I'm preaching is being felt by the folks who are also doing it. So for me, intentional hospitality is making sure that every single time that I'm at the front of a room, everything is presented and ready before the course even starts, right before the workshop even starts. I was with my friends at Six Flags over Georgia with some leadership training in the spring, and I got there the day before, right? I mean, we've all lived this life. I got there the day before, set up the tables, had the printed materials ready to go, had the takeaway cup ready to go, all those things. And the team walked in the next day and they were like, what do you mean you're not moving tables right now when we're walking in? They said, well, friends, this is intentional hospitality. I knew you were coming. Did you guys know I was coming? You did. None of you cleaned the room. The trash bag was still full when I got here, right? Like, as host of this space, what were you telling me? And an HR leader stood up and said, we screwed the pooch. You didn't screw the pooch, friends. This is why I'm here, is to have this conversation. But like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the fact that your associates, who again are 16 and 17 years old, and this is their first job, and you want them to go out and serve these guests as best as possible. What's their first experience? And that to me is like the best way to show intentional hospitality as a leader, is to have everything prepared, to have those materials printed, right? It drives me nuts when like I walk into a leader's office and there's like a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a document. Like, do you not have the original anymore? Like, let's build the original. Let's craft an original so that you don't have to have a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Or, you know, when so many of our friends in this industry are doing leadership trainings that are consistent across years and years and years, but we are day of printing black and white versions of a workbook instead of just budgeting the extra $400 to get them well printed for the year, right? Like, there's those types of things that if we want to truly prove hospitality is in everything we do, we as leaders have to think differently about the way that we're doing them. That was super rambly. I'm sorry. That was really
Well, at least the last part was coherent, where you said, you know, if we want to show intentional hospitality, we have to be intentional about the hospitality that we're showing, right? And I think it is in every single detail. I do want to ask you about a keynote that you have listed on your website, because it says it's called "No, Really, You're Creative," and this is a concept that I talk to a lot of people about, because they think because they can't paint a picture or write a song that they're not quote unquote creative. But I've met some accountants that are really creative with numbers. So
yes.
I'd love to hear your take on this, Ryan.
Yeah, you know, I am very fortunate that I've been in the entertainment version of hospitality and attractions my entire career. Folks look at me often like, "You're so creative." I'm like, "Yes, but you are too." I can't, numbers, as any of my leaders will tell you, numbers are not a place that I survive or thrive in. So like, there are accountants, to your point, Matt, who are so creative, who are so deeply creative in the way that they process numbers or look at numbers, or can talk to my crazy brain about numbers. That is creativity, right? I think about folks who rearrange warehouses so that it flows more efficiently or so it's safer. That's creativity. And I think that so many folks have told themselves, because they are not painting or drawing or doing music or dancing, that they're not a creative individual. My goal in that keynote is more than anything that people start saying that they are creative. Not so much that they like realize they're creative, but like, so many again, words have power. When you tell yourself you're not creative, you allow yourself to not be creative. When you tell yourself, I need to look at this creatively, that gives you a much different coloring book to use than when you say the opposite, right? So more than anything, No, Really, You're Creative is the chance for folks to see how they are part of coloring beautiful pictures without even realizing that they're coloring beautiful pictures.
So what does that identity shift look like, per se, of somebody who might be sitting in that and they're saying, well, I can't draw, I can't paint, or, you know, or anything like that, but then allowing themselves to say, let me look at this creatively. What is maybe the transformation that happens?
Yeah. I mean, the goal more than anything is that when folks stop putting themselves in boxes, they're able to see the world much more beautifully and much more largely, right? The world is a really big, beautiful place. And when we tell ourselves we are one thing or not one thing, we have crafted a story that is limiting. And so more than anything, my hope in a keynote like No, Really, You're Creative is that folks stop putting themselves in this box of, I'm a numbers guy, I'm a black and white guy, right? Like, yeah, you can do all of those things, but you are also very creative because you approach things differently than anyone else in the room. The goal in the No, Really, You're Creative keynote, I ask folks to talk to the people around them in a portion of the keynote to find out what they believe they're creative doing. Because that's also an important thing that happens when folks have a job and a job title, they live that job and that job title sometimes, and that's it, right? Again, I think about some of my friends in the accounting world who did not understand why it cost X amount of dollars to get garland for a holiday event. And the minute I invited them to come see the garland in action and see my team decorate the garland, I learned that my good friend Kathy at Carowinds loves Christmas. And so Kathy would come down to the warehouse and decorate Christmas garland with us, and would also educate my team on how much money I had spent on the garland and the baubles and the ornaments and the ribbon that they were using. And so that's the piece for me that is so interesting about creativity, is creativity builds community. And when people are telling themselves they're not creative, there's something about that is limiting to the community that they build.
So Ryan, is there a through line or dots to be connected with what you just said in terms of getting that accountant to see how much you've spent on garland and your crafted gatherings? What I'm kind of gathering, pun intended, is that obviously this is about bringing people together, but doing it, and the word intentional comes to mind, doing it in such a way that it has meaning to them, and then they can serve their community better. That's kind of what I'm getting from a couple of these stories.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you've hit it on the head. How many of us have gone and done a ropes course? And in the ropes course, they're like, teamwork is great. If you do teamwork, you don't hit the bell in the spider web rope, right? Like, yeah, that's all great. But that does not connect folks in this. It gives us laughs, right? We're like, hey, remember that time Susan didn't want to jump because she didn't trust any of us? that has truth to it. But the goal in all of the work that I do with Little Birdie is about community, because I think so many, especially after the pandemic, people got very used to being at home. Folks work from home all the time. Folks made different choices with their lives. Like, people got very insular and siloed in the way that they approach things. And now, because everyone can feel like a star on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, right? Like, there is so much to be said about being in a place with people. And that's why I love our industry so much of attractions. That's also why I love chambers of commerce and economic development teams, because their goal is to bring people together as well. Now, again, it might not be with funnel cakes and Ferris wheels, but like, their goal is also to build community in some really cool ways. And sometimes with small budgets, sometimes with folks with different priorities. And so that community build, that team build is so, so important to the work that I do.
How does this then connect to making sure people end their day with a story worth telling that you mentioned in your bio? And I think that's a really fascinating I don't know, mantra, if you will. And I'm wondering if we can kind of transition and dive into that.
So it's really important. Everyone who knows me, who listens to the Little Birdie podcast, or who follows me on social media, or has known me, knows my story. So my story is that 13-year-old Ryan was a little queer boy from a small town in Virginia called Goochland, where we had one stoplight. And my dad got sick with cancer. And so my mom and my dad made the choice for our final family vacation before my dad passed, was to Walt Disney World. And I will never forget that the team at All Star Sports moved our room, no questions asked, so that we were closer to the bus so he wouldn't be exhausted. Every restaurant we went to, a chef came out and asked my dad what he wanted for dinner, even if it wasn't on the menu. I believe deeply that we get to help people create stories for their lives. Again, whether that is at a farm tour, whether that is at a park visit, whether that is in a training room, all of us get the chance to connect and build community and help people craft stories. And having stories worth remembering is the only thing that we get to carry, right? Like there's so much physical stuff there's only so much physical stuff we get to take with us to places. But all of the things that we experience, we carry with us and should carry with us. So I use that filter, right? I use the weird first day at King's Dominion story a lot, but like, honestly, all of this is rooted in care. All of this is rooted in making sure that 13-year-old Ryan, when he comes to a theme park or goes to a tomato festival or goes to the cheese shop, like, feels seen, because there's a lot in this world that doesn't always see folks, and feeling seen is the important story for all of us.
So let's tie that back to leadership because I believe that leaders need to see their team members, right? And their team members want to be seen, they want to be heard. But because of the ratio that's off sometimes, you've got one leader to 10, 20, 30 people. What is some of the advice that you give or the counsel that you give to leaders about ensuring that Ryan or whoever that's on your team feels seen and heard?
Yeah. I think it's super important for leaders to know who they are. That's a really important first step. Knowing who you are and what your expectations are, whether that leans into what an executive wants you to have as an expectation or what you believe to be your own expectations, that's really important. The other piece for me when it comes to like making sure your team is seen is being in it with them. I cannot stress enough how important it is for leaders to be on the floor, in the park, in the kitchen with their teams, because then that gives you the chance to, again, like I said earlier, being a place of incubation means that I know, right? Again, here's some very specific examples. I have been playing dress up as a costume character for over 20 years. I cannot be upset when I go to a theme park and the character cast hasn't been trained properly to my standard because the character leaders haven't been dressing up as a costume character for 20 years. So now it's my job to teach them and the cast how to bring those characters to life in unique and interesting ways. But if I sit in my desk the whole time, I'll never see that, right? And then I also won't be able to celebrate the growth either, right? Especially, right? Costume characters is a really niche example, but that's, I think, the best way that I can like frame it is making sure as a leader that you see your team is being in it with them, but then also making sure that they see you as a leader too. There's so much to be said about authenticity as a leader that I think sometimes gets like misconstrued as like, you can't always be yourself, right? We used to, I'm sure you guys have heard all the time when people are like, leave your life at the gate. Nope, absolutely not. That is that is not the way that the world is working anymore. That is not the way. People are carrying so much. And so being authentic with your team means that they trust you enough to come in and say, hey, my grandma's sick, right? Being authentic with your team means that they know, right? Great example. I'm very transparent with my team about how hard June is for me. I lived in Orlando, like I shared with you guys. Pulse and the Pulse shootings and that anniversary every year is massive. And there's times when that and Father's Day match up, which is like a hellacious week for me of like not knowing where to put my energy. I believe deeply that if I can't share why I'm off or why I'm having an off day, it means that my team can't share that with me either. And why would I want that, right? I want my team to have a great time. I want them to be honest, and I want them to be able to look at each other and be like, I'm at a 3 today, guys. I'm here, but I'm not. So like, can someone carry the radio for me? Which is about the authenticity and the gift of being seen, and building a place that people can be seen is really important.
The importance of authenticity combined with maybe vulnerability and not checking yourself at the gate. Is that what you said? Or
yeah, I mean, that's so. And that's one of those things too that feels like some old school leadership that like it had a place, but that place wasn't created with cell phones and people having a ton of knowledge about the news, right? Like there's a ton of it's kind of the same. So I'm going to make a weird tie-in here. Theme parks are still crafting and creating Halloween experiences as if it was 1999. Since 1999, let's talk about what's changed. People can go to an escape room every weekend if they want to, which is basically a haunt maze. People can watch horror movies anytime they want to because there is a Netflix-style service called Shudder where you can watch blood, guts, and gore every day, as opposed to in 1999, Halloween movies came out at Halloween, right? There are people can now watch makeup artists do behind-the-scenes blood, guts, and gore makeup, which was like a cool thing that we were doing on scare actors. Now they can do it whenever they want, right? You can now order Ben Nye blood very easily through non-theatrical theater makeup organizations, right? I believe that we as attractions pros need to look at how we're taking care of our folks, regardless of what it was 20 years ago when a lot of us started, and realize what's happening right now, right? We need to realize what's happening with our kids, right? That's a derogatory term, but like with our up and coming talent, we need to realize that their lives, the 16-year-olds now are very different than 16-year-old Ryan, right? Very, very different. And that's a really important thing to realize, not just like in the like the kids today, but like the way they experience life is different. The way that they express themselves is different. Their identities are so different as well, right? And so being a safe place, like a theme park or a hospitality location, is a safe place for folks who don't necessarily want to check themselves at the door because they need to be authentic with the guests. I'm rambling. I'm really rambling. I might have to get in my banana car, guys. I'm really sorry.
No, this is great. This is great. It really makes me think about when I was, kind of coming up, and it's been many, many years since my first orientation at a park, but those words were spoken like, here's the bin, here's where you put your problems. The guests don't care. Leave them there. They'll be there when you come back. And like, I don't think anything is further from the truth now. It's such a different environment. We are, starting to kind of wind down. We've got a couple of questions left, but there's one word that I want to mention to you from the time that I got to be on your podcast that I want to hear your perspective on: quicksand.
Oh, yes. Yes, Matt, let's talk about quicksand. I think I saw some recently, which was really weird. All of the, we would talk about quicksand a lot in elementary school, but like how to get out of it. But I never saw it until recently. So
No.
Yeah, Matt, when we chatted about quicksand on my podcast, we were talking about how it kind of like weighs us all down and how we get stuck in it. And I still think it's true. But I think that as leaders, knowing where the stick is to get out of it is the most important part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the stick to get it, like to hoist it? I want to know more.
Yeah. So Josh, I know that you said you were in a bratwurst balloon, so you might not need the stick. But Matt and I are driving cars. We might get stuck in quicksand. So yeah, I think as Matt and I talked about on my podcast, the Little Birdie podcast, available on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We talked a lot about how leaders get stuck in their own way sometimes, and quicksand, again, kind of like I said earlier, is not being able to see the forest for the trees. And I think so much quicksand, again, is especially for leaders who maybe haven't reset themselves in the new way that things are happening in our industry. Again, like you said, Matt, putting what's going on in your life in a box and then getting it on the gate on the way out. If a leader said that to a group of young folks right now, that wouldn't be quicksand. That'd be a death trap, I think. Like, I think that would be like a bear trap that like just clamps, because you can't come back from something like that for a generation who are connected to their feelings differently and connected to their problems differently. So
yeah. And I think really where it came from too is talking specifically about leadership, but also those things that hold us back. And a lot of times it's ourselves that are holding us back, right? And it's our belief system. Go back to the creative piece. I think when we say I'm not creative, that's like sticking your feet right in the quicksand.
It's quicksand, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you say you're busy, that's quicksand, right? Like when you say this team just has so much drama, that's quicksand. When you say communication is our problem, that's quicksand. And all of those things to like really get in the way of continuing your journey, continuing your path forward with quicksand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So Ryan, like Matt mentioned, we've got just a few minutes left here, but we do want to talk about what's been going on recently in your life. And you moved across the country to take a position with a new park. And
I did. Yes. That's actually where I saw the quicksand. I drove, ironically, just a few weeks ago, over from Charlotte, North Carolina to Santa Clarita, California, to join the team here at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I'm very fortunate. My leader from Carowinds, Brian Ording, who also, he should be on this podcast. He'd be very good on this podcast, by the way. Yeah, but Brian recently in the changes that happened when John Riley joined the Six Flags team as CEO, he put some different senior and executive leaders in place. He asked Brian to join the team at Six Flags Magic Mountain as park president. Brian called me maybe 2 days later and said, "Hey, I think I want you to come to Six Flags Magic Mountain with me." I had the chance to visit the property about a month ago. The team here is very passionate and very excited about the work they do, which is nice. This property used to be, Six Flags Magic Mountain used to be a show property. And so I'm excited to help build a plan that gets us back to that. The facilities here are lovely. 20 roller coasters is crazy, guys. Like, it is nuts. I thought Carowinds had a lot of attractions. I walked the park and was like, how are these roller coasters connected? This is bizarre. This is like, it feels like the movie version of a theme park where like the coasters are built into each other and around each other. So I'm super excited to be here and to continue helping families make memories, right? Helping folks make memories with the space that they're in. And, I say this to my casts all the time when we have a rehearsal, get ready to open, or having a rough day. I always like to remind the cast, there's going to be a kid in this audience who this is their first show that they've ever seen. This is going to be some families' only holiday experience. They have spent their money to come see this thing, and that's all they're doing. This is the Christmas present. There's going to be a family who this is their first time together as a family in years. This is going to be your family's maybe last time as a family because someone's sick or someone, there's other family dynamics happening. There's also going to be one kid in the audience who is 8-year-old you, and being able to show 8-year-old you how cool life is 10 years later, 20 years later, like all of that happens in a 20-minute skit at a theme park 6 times a day, which is like a wild, wild thing to do. So I'm super excited to bring that to life here at Six Flags Magic Mountain and to dig into some of the history. This park has such cool history there. I found out we used to have trolls here at Magic Mountain. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited to figure out if they want to come back out and play. There was a wizard. I'm excited to see if he wants to come back out and play. So I'm just excited to dig into the history and bring some magic back to Magic Mountain.
Well, Ryan, I'm going to add one more group of people that might be in the audience. As a coaster nerd, I typically don't have time to go to see the shows, but when we were at Hershey Park, it was raining, and we're like, hey, there's a show starting right now. Let's go right in there. We can get out of the rain.
Yeah.
And it was a show about, music through the decades and things like that.
Yeah.
It was really good. Like,
Hershey Park does such good work, dude. They do such good shows. They did a show a few years ago that was all about love. And they did a like killer 1930s version of Lady Gaga's Edge of Glory. And I cannot get it out of my head. It was beautiful. It felt very Schmigadoon. If you haven't seen Tony Award winning Schmigadoon, you should. But like, it was like very on the nose, like theme park. It was so good. But that cover of Edge of Glory is something like I dream about it. I dream about it.
Awesome. Well, we enjoyed the show as coaster nerds who were just trying to get out of the rain. So that's another group that you can add to the cast of characters in the audience.
Well, and I think that's such an important part too, right? So many folks come to a park for coasters and for attractions, obviously. But to your point, I've only been here at the park for a little bit, and we're going through a heat wave, and it's not humid Charlotte hot, but like it is still hot. It is still 110 degrees, and and so like it's 100 degrees. We got to get some people in a theater. We need to cool them down. We need to make sure that they're entertained, that like they can reset their bodies. That's the other thing too. Entertainment in a theme park resets people's energy. To your point, Matt, it got you guys out of the weather, but like for a family, when we're having meltdowns, an air-conditioned theater is a very magical place for a toddler meltdown.
Yes. Go see a show for your own safety and sanity. Put that on a billboard, right?
I'm going to get that on a button.
There you go. Ryan, this has been fantastic. We really enjoyed learning about Little Birdie Consulting, as well as your background and just your philosophies on all of this. If people who are listening to this, they want to reach out to you, they want to learn more, they want to hire Little Birdie Consulting, where would you send them?
Yeah, so Instagram at Little Birdie Consulting is going to be a great place to go. I'm also available on LinkedIn, but Instagram has most of my like fun content. LinkedIn just kind of the boring stuff. So check me out on Instagram. You can follow me there for my bi-weekly podcast where Matt has been a guest, and Josh, I'm excited to have you on season 2 in the upcoming months. And lots of other fun content there. I love sharing joy content as much as possible. And I also usually like 3 times a week share Birdie Beats playlists so that if you need some energy to get through your day differently, music plays a huge part in that. And so I love being able to provide themed experiences for folks in 2 to 4 hour playlists.
That's
Nice.
awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad we were able to do this. You just have such a wealth of knowledge, and I'm glad we were able to get it out to our listeners. And for everybody who is watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.